The rooftop wind cut through my thin jacket like glass shards. But I didn't move. Couldn't move. My sketch pad balanced on my knees, charcoal smudging against my frozen fingers as I traced the Chicago skyline for the 100th time. Below, the city pulsed with New Year's Eve energy. Parties in every building, champagne already flowing at 9 p.m., people dressed in sequins and hope. I wore ripped jeans and a hoodie beneath my vintage leather jacket, my dark curly hair whipping across my face as I hunched over my drawing. Alone, exactly as planned. The thing about being 23 and spending New Year's on a rooftop by yourself is that everyone assumes you're tragic. Poor Nomi. So quiet. So small. Probably crying into her sketchbook about being unloved. But they had it backwards. I chose this. Chose the solitude over Valentina's latest chaotic party downstairs. Over the obligatory smiles and small talk with people who saw me as Valentina's weird artist friend. 3 years of trailing behind her to family dinners at the Conti mansion, sitting silent in corners while dangerous men discuss territories and shipments in careful code, watching Valentina's brother Octavio move through rooms like he owned not just the house, but the very air inside it. 3 years of being invisible. I preferred it that way. Invisible meant safe. Invisible meant I could observe, could sketch the planes of powerful faces when they weren't looking, could study the architecture of violence and wealth without becoming part of it. My charcoal caught on a rough patch of paper. I was shading the reflection of fireworks that hadn't started yet, anticipating the explosion of color across the frozen lake, when the sound hit. Not fireworks. Rotor blades. I looked up, squinting against the wind, and watched a sleek black helicopter descend toward the rooftop like a predatory bird. The noise was deafening, the downdraft sending my sketches scattering across the gravel. I lunged for them, pressing my palm flat on the pad to keep it from flying away, my heart hammering against my ribs. This building didn't have a helipad. This building was rent-controlled apartments, and broke artists, and Valentina's trust fund rebellion against her family. Helicopters didn't land here, except one just did. The door opened before the blades fully stopped, and I knew who it was before his expensive shoes touched the rooftop. Octavio Conti. 30 years old, 6'3" of controlled menace in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than my entire year's rent. Dark hair precisely styled, sharp jawline, those cold gray eyes that missed nothing. I'd seen him dozens of times. At dinners where I sat 3 chairs down, silent. At parties where he stood near the windows, watching everyone with that calculating distance. At Christmas, when he'd handed Valentina an envelope of cash and told her to stop embarrassing the family by living in this neighborhood. He'd never once looked directly at me. Not once in 3 years. He was looking now. "Where's my sister?" His voice cut through the helicopter noise, flat and commanding. I stayed crouched over my scattered drawings, trying to gather them with shaking hands. The charcoal had smeared across my palms, black dust mixing with the cold sweat. "Good evening to you too." His eyes narrowed. "I don't have time for pleasantries. Valentina isn't answering her phone. I know she lives here. Where is she?" "Not here." I stood slowly, clutching my rescued sketches against my chest. The wind immediately tried to tear them away again. "She left 2 days ago." "Left where?" "Vegas, with a bassist named Axel, who has a mohawk and 17 facial piercings." I watched his jaw tighten, a muscle jumping beneath that perfect control. "She said something about getting married in a chapel shaped like a guitar. Very romantic." For 3 seconds, Octavio Conti just stared at me, processing, recalculating. I'd seen him do this before, this rapid assessment when information didn't match expectations. Except he'd never done it to me, because I'd never given him information, never given him anything except silence. "You let her go to Vegas?" His voice dropped lower, more dangerous. With some musician? And you didn't think to inform the family? Something hot flared in my chest. Maybe it was the cold finally getting to me. Maybe it was 3 years of being dismissed as furniture. Maybe it was just the absolute absurdity of standing on a frozen rooftop at 9:47 p.m. on New Year's Eve, being interrogated by a man who'd never bothered to learn my name. I don't work for you. I met his gaze directly for the first time ever. Valentina is 21 years old and can do whatever she wants, including running away from a family that treats her like property. His expression shifted. Not anger, something more complex. Surprise, maybe. Like a statue had suddenly spoken. You think you know my family? He moved closer, each step deliberate. The helicopter blades were slowing now, the noise dropping to a dull whine. You think sitting quietly in corners at dinner makes you an expert on how we operate? I think barking orders at people before you even say hello makes you rude. The words escaped before I could stop them. I think landing a helicopter on someone's roof without warning is aggressive. I think expecting me to track your adult sister like she's your possession says everything about why she ran. I watched realization flicker across his face. He knew who I was now. Not just Valentina's friend, but someone specific. Someone with a spine he hadn't anticipated. Know me. My name and his voice sounded strange, foreign. Know me, Marino. The tattoo artist. The invisible girl who sits 3 chairs down. I couldn't stop now. 3 years of silence breaking open. The one you've walked past 63 times without acknowledgement. But now you need something. So suddenly I exist. His eyes traveled over me slowly, reassessing, taking in the charcoal-stained fingers, the ripped jeans, the defiance I'd never shown before. You counted. I observe people. It's what I do. I gestured at my sketch pad. You're very predictable, actually. Always the same entrance, same position near windows, same exit timing. You scan rooms clockwise, check your phone every 11 minutes, and you only drink whiskey that's older than I am. Something that might have been amusement touched his mouth. That's very observant for someone invisible. Invisible people see everything. I tucked my drawings more securely under my arm. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a New Year's to spend alone, by choice. I turned to leave, heading for the roof access door. Made it 3 steps before his voice stopped me. I need to find Valentina, tonight. Then you'll need to learn to say please before barking orders. I didn't turn around. Consider it a New Year's resolution. Being polite to people you need help from. Silence. Just the wind and the distant sounds of the city below. I waited, my hand on the door handle, cold metal burning against my palm. Please. The word sounded like it cost him. Help me find my sister. Please. I looked back over my shoulder. Octavio Conti stood in the center of the rooftop, helicopter behind him like a movie backdrop, looking at me with something that wasn't quite desperation, but definitely wasn't control. She won't answer your calls, I said, but she might answer mine, if I ask nicely, if I explain that you asked nicely. What do you want in exchange? The question shouldn't have surprised me. Everything was a transaction in his world. But hearing it stated so baldly, so matter-of-fact, made something in my chest ache. I want you to leave her alone if she's happy. I turned fully to face him. I want you to consider that maybe running away with a bassist is exactly what she needs. That maybe your version of protecting her is actually suffocating her. His expression hardened. You don't understand our world. I understand that she cries every time she has to go home for dinner. I watched that land, watched him absorb it. I understand that she's terrified of disappointing you. I understand that she loves you and resents you in equal measure because you can't see her as anything except something to control. That's not... He stopped himself. Recalculated again. I protect her. From what? Happiness? Choice? The possibility of making her own mistakes? We stared at each other across the rooftop, wind whipping between us. Below, someone set off early fireworks. Premature celebration, sparks against the dark sky. Call her, Octavio said finally. See if she answers. If she's safe and happy, I'll... He paused, clearly unfamiliar with compromising. I'll consider your perspective. I pulled out my phone, fingers clumsy with cold. Valentina answered on the second ring, her voice bright with alcohol and joy. Know me. Oh my God. You should see this chapel. It's completely insane. There's an Elvis impersonator and Axel just... Your brother landed a helicopter on our roof. I kept my eyes on Octavio. He's concerned. Her joy evaporated. Shit. Is he furious? Probably. But I'm negotiating. Are you safe? Are you happy? Do you actually want to marry this bassist? Or is this rebellion theater? Silence on the line, then quieter. I love him, Nomi. I know it sounds crazy, but I really love him. And I'm so tired of being the Conti daughter. I just want to be Valentina for a while. Then be Valentina. I smiled despite the cold. I'll handle your brother. Go get married by fake Elvis. Send photos. You're the best friend I've ever had. I know. Now go, before you sober up and change your mind. I ended the call, slipped the phone back into my pocket, and delivered my verdict. She's safe. She's happy. She's getting married in approximately 40 minutes. Your protective services are not required. Octavio's face was unreadable. And I'm supposed to just accept this? Let her marry some nobody? You're supposed to trust that she's capable of making decisions about her own life. I moved toward the roof access door again. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have sketching to finish before midnight. Wait. He caught my arm as I passed, his grip firm but not painful. Heat radiated through my thin jacket where his fingers touched. You're really going to spend New Year's Eve alone? On a rooftop? That was the plan, yes. I looked pointedly at his hand on my arm until he released me. Some of us prefer solitude to forced celebration. I just canceled my flight back. He said it like a decision made mid-thought. Valentina won't be here. My evening just cleared. Congratulations on your newfound freedom. I pulled open the roof access door, already anticipating the relative warmth of the stairwell. Enjoy your flight home whenever you reschedule it. I'm staying here. He moved past me, blocking the doorway with his body. On this rooftop, until midnight. I blinked at him. Excuse me? You think I'm predictable. You think I only see people as possessions or threats. You think I don't know how to ask nicely. His gray eyes held mine with unsettling intensity. I'm going to prove you wrong. All of it. Starting with not leaving you alone on New Year's Eve. I want to be alone. No, you want to avoid the party downstairs because you're tired of being invisible in crowds. He leaned against the doorframe, completely blocking my escape. But I see you now, Nomi Marino, and I'm not leaving this rooftop until midnight. So you can either spend the next 2 hours ignoring me while you draw, or you can teach me how to be less predictable. My heart was doing something erratic in my chest. This wasn't happening. Octavio Conti wasn't staying on a frozen rooftop with me. He wasn't looking at me like I was a puzzle worth solving. He wasn't smiling that slight, dangerous smile that made my knees feel unstable. You're insane, I managed. Probably. He shrugged off his suit jacket, revealing the white dress shirt beneath. 4 buttons were already undone, exposing a triangle of tanned skin and the edge of a tattoo I'd never known existed. But I just flew across the city on New Year's Eve to find my sister, discovered she eloped with a bassist, and got lectured about basic courtesy by a 5'4" tattoo artist who counts how many times I've ignored her. Insane seems appropriate. 5'5", I corrected automatically. His smile widened fractionally. My mistake. 5'5". Better? I stared at him, at this impossible situation, at the way he was settling in like he belonged on this rooftop as much as the gravel and snow. Below, the city counted down toward midnight. Above, early fireworks continued their premature celebration. Between us, something shifted that I didn't have words for yet. "Fine," I heard myself say. "But I'm not entertaining you. I'm finishing my drawings. You can freeze to death in silence or you can leave. Those are your options." Noted. He moved aside, finally clearing the doorway. But instead of going through it, I found myself walking back toward my original corner, settling onto the cold gravel with my sketch pad. Because leaving now would feel like retreating, like letting him win some contest I didn't know we were having. Octavio followed, surprisingly graceful for someone who commanded empires. He sat 3 feet away, close enough to talk, but far enough to respect my space. The gesture felt intentional, calculated. He was good at calculating. "What are you drawing?" he asked after a minute of silence. "The city, the lake, the fireworks that haven't started yet." "How do you draw something that hasn't happened?" "Anticipation." I showed him the sketch, the planned explosions of light I'd shaded in charcoal. Understanding the pattern well enough to predict it. His eyes moved over my drawing with genuine interest. "Like how you predicted my behavior. Clockwise scans, phone checks, window positions." "Exactly like that." I started a new sketch, my fingers warming up with movement. People are patterns. Most just don't realize how obvious their patterns are. "What's my pattern telling you right now?" I glanced at him from the corner of my eye, studying the way he sat. Controlled even in casual posture, but there was tension in his shoulders I'd never seen at family dinners. "That you're furious about Valentina, but trying to respect my opinion. That you're not used to sitting still. That you check your phone every 11 minutes even when you're trying not to. And that you're wondering why you're really staying on this rooftop instead of going home." His laugh was unexpected, genuine. Frighteningly accurate. "What's your pattern?" "I don't have patterns. I adapt." "Everyone has patterns, Nomi. You just hide yours better." He shifted slightly closer, close enough that I could smell expensive cologne mixed with helicopter fuel and cold air. "You've spent 3 years being invisible because it's safer than being seen. You count things obsessively because numbers are controllable when people aren't. You choose rooftops over parties because height gives you distance. And you're sketching fireworks that haven't happened yet because you're always preparing for things to explode." The accuracy made my chest tight. "Maybe you're more observant than I gave you credit for." "Maybe we both are." He pulled out his phone, checked the time. 97 minutes until midnight. What happens at midnight for the girl who draws explosions? Absolutely nothing. That's the whole point of being alone. Except you're not alone anymore. He stood suddenly, walked to the edge of the roof, and looked out over the city. "Come here. I want to show you something." I should have said no. Should have stayed in my corner with my drawings and my carefully planned solitude. Instead, I found myself standing, walking to the edge where he stood, following his pointing finger across the skyline. "See that building? The one with the green lights? The museum. I'm on the board of trustees. They're hosting a gala tonight." He checked his phone again. "I was supposed to be there. Black tie, champagne, speeches about art preservation and tax write-offs. Sounds terrible." "It is." He looked at me instead of the building. "But they have a collection of contemporary tattoo art on loan from São Paulo. Very controversial. Half the board wanted to reject it. Too lowbrow for their tastes." My hands stilled on my sketch pad. "You voted to include it." "I did." His expression shifted to something almost vulnerable. Because Valentina showed me your portfolio last year, your designs, the way you blend traditional technique with abstract concepts. You have real talent, Nomi. The kind that belongs in museums, not just on skin. The compliment hit harder than it should have. 3 years invisible, and suddenly he'd seen my work, remembered it, fought for it to be included in prestigious collections. I don't understand. The words came out smaller than I intended. Why would you do that? Why would you care? Because not everything I do is about control or possession. He turned fully toward me, close enough now that I could see the gray of his eyes wasn't solid, but flecked with darker storm clouds. Sometimes I recognize excellence and want to protect it. Sometimes I see potential and want to nurture it. Sometimes I notice things even when I'm pretending not to. You're saying you noticed me? At dinners? All those times? Every single time. His voice dropped lower, intimate in the cold air. The girl with charcoal under her fingernails who never spoke but listened to everything. Who sketched on napkins when she thought no one was watching. Who looked at my world like she was documenting it for some future testimony. I was documenting it. I couldn't lie, not when he was seeing me this clearly. Your world fascinates me. The architecture of power. The way violence and elegance coexist in the same room. The language you all speak in careful code. I wanted to understand it. Why? Because understanding things makes them less frightening. His hand came up, slowly, giving me time to move away. When I didn't, his fingers brushed along my jaw, tilting my face up toward his. Am I frightening, Nomi? Yes. The honesty felt dangerous. You're one of the most frightening people I've ever met. Good. His thumb traced my lower lip, gentle despite the word. Fear means respect. Means you're smart enough to recognize danger when you see it. But you're still here. Still standing on a rooftop with me instead of running away. Maybe I'm tired of running away from things. Or maybe you're finally ready to run toward something. His other hand came up, framing my face between his palms. Warm despite the freezing air, steady despite the wind. I'm going to kiss you at midnight, Nomi Marino. Fair warning. You have 93 minutes to decide if you want that to happen or if you want to disappear back into invisibility. My breath caught, and if I say no, then I'll respect that. I'll leave this rooftop. I'll go back to being the man you counted ignoring you 63 times. His eyes searched mine. But I think you're going to say yes. I think you've been waiting 3 years for someone to actually see you. And I think you're exactly as tired of predictable as I am. He released me then, stepping back, giving me space. My face felt cold where his hands had been. 93 minutes, he repeated, checking his phone one more time. Decide carefully. Then he walked away, back to the helicopter, pulled something from inside it. A bottle. Champagne. Expensive, obviously. The kind that appeared at Conti family celebrations, never at rooftop sketching sessions. If we're doing this, he called over his shoulder, we're doing it properly. Toast at midnight. New Year's tradition. I stood frozen at the edge of the roof, my sketch pad forgotten in my hands, watching Octavio Conti steal champagne from his own helicopter and settle back onto the gravel like he belonged there. Like this was normal. Like the next 93 minutes wouldn't change everything. 63 times he'd walked past me. 3 years invisible. And now, on the last night of the year, on a frozen Chicago rooftop, he was offering me a choice. Be seen. Or disappear forever. I looked at my drawings, at the fireworks I'd sketched before they happened. Anticipation, pattern, control. Then I looked at Octavio, who was completely unpredictable, who disrupted every pattern I'd built, who offered danger wrapped in honesty. 92 minutes, I said, walking back toward him, not retreating, advancing. "You'd better make them count." His smile was sharp and genuine and terrifying. "Bambina mia," he said softly, testing out an endearment that sent heat through my frozen body. I always do. 87 minutes until midnight, and Octavio Conti was asking me about tattoos. Not the safe questions people usually asked. Not, "Does it hurt?" Or, "What's the weirdest design you've done?" He wanted to know about the philosophy behind permanent marks, about why people chose pain to create beauty, about the trust required to let someone alter your skin forever. "It's intimate," I said, watching him pour champagne into paper cups he'd produced from somewhere. Expensive champagne in disposable cups felt like a perfect metaphor for this entire night. More intimate than people realize. You're literally under their skin, making something that will outlive arguments and breakups and sometimes the relationships themselves. Like a contract, written in ink and pain. He handed me a cup, our fingers brushing. Even through the cold, I felt the heat of the contact. Binding, exactly like that. I took a sip, the bubbles sharp against my tongue. Except contracts can be broken. Tattoos are forever, even when you regret them. "Do you have regrets?" His eyes traveled over my visible skin, searching for marks. "Tattoos you wish you could erase?" I pulled up my left sleeve, revealing the intricate mandala that wrapped around my forearm. Black and gray, geometric precision mixed with organic flow. "This one. I did it myself when I was 19. The symmetry is slightly off on the lower quadrant. Drives me insane every time I look at it." He leaned closer, studying the design with genuine interest. His finger traced the pattern, following the lines. "I don't see the flaw." "That's because you're not a perfectionist obsessed with mathematical precision." I pointed to the subtle deviation, the place where my hand had cramped and the angle shifted by maybe 2 degrees. "There. See how the curve doesn't match the opposite side?" "No." He looked up from my arm to my face, still close enough that I could count his eyelashes. "I see a beautiful design executed with remarkable skill. The imperfection makes it human, makes it real." Spoken like someone who's never created anything permanent. His hand went to his collar, fingers working the 5th button of his shirt. "Want to test that theory?" Before I could answer, he pulled the shirt open further, revealing his chest. And there, over his heart, was a tattoo I'd never seen, never known existed. An eagle, wings spread, rendered in stunning black and gray realism. The detail was extraordinary, each feather distinct, eyes fierce and intelligent. "I got this when I was 21. His voice was quieter now, more vulnerable. 3 months after I took over the family business from my father. The artist was this old man in Naples who'd done work for 3 generations of our family. He told me the eagle represented power and vision, but also isolation. That birds of prey hunt alone. I couldn't stop myself from reaching out, my fingers tracing the feathers the way his had traced my mandala. His skin was warm beneath my touch, his heartbeat steady and strong under my palm. "It's beautiful work," I whispered. "The shading is perfect. The composition. There's a flaw." He caught my hand, pressing it flat against his chest. "See the left wing? 2 feathers that don't quite connect." The artist's hand slipped. He apologized for hours, offered to fix it, but I told him to leave it. Reminded me that even predators bleed. We stayed like that, my hand on his chest, his covering mine, the city sprawling below us and the cold air forgotten. This was dangerous, this intimacy, this revelation of imperfections, this collision of 2 people who'd spent years studying each other from safe distances. 79 minutes, he said, checking his phone with his free hand. "You haven't decided yet." "Decided what?" "Whether to let me kiss you at midnight, whether to stop being invisible, whether to trust that I see you for real, and not just as my sister's quiet friend. I pulled my hand away, needing distance to think. Walked back to my corner, to my sketch pad and charcoal, but I didn't sit. Couldn't sit. Too much energy suddenly, too much restless anticipation. What happens after midnight? The question came out sharper than intended. You kiss me, toast the new year, then what? You fly away in your helicopter and I go back to being the girl you ignore at family dinners. Is that what you think? He followed me, that predatory grace making him seem to glide rather than walk. That this is just some momentary impulse? Some boredom because my evening plans fell through? Isn't it? No. He stopped 3 feet away again, respecting my space even as his presence filled it. I've been watching you for 3 years, Nomi. Counting the ways you counted me. Noticing how you noticed. Wanting to talk to you, and holding back, because mixing my world with innocence feels like pollution. I'm not innocent. You're not corrupted either. His jaw tightened. And you should stay that way. Which is why I should leave this rooftop right now. Get back in that helicopter and forget this entire night happened. Then why don't you? Because 64 minutes from now it will be a new year. New beginning. New possibilities. He pulled out his phone, and I expected another time check. Instead, he showed me the screen. Photos. Dozens of them. Art gallery openings, tattoo conventions, street art festivals. I've been to every show you've exhibited in for the past 18 months, standing in the back, never approaching, just watching you talk about your work, watching you come alive in a way you never do at my family's dinners. The revelation stole my breath. You've been following me? I've been supporting you, anonymously. He scrolled through more photos. The grant you received last spring to study traditional Japanese techniques in Osaka, that was my foundation. The studio space that mysteriously became available when you needed to leave your old location. I bought the building, the commission from the museum board to create a piece for their permanent collection. I suggested your name. My hands were shaking. Not from cold, from the enormity of what he was admitting. Why? Why would you do all that? Because you have extraordinary talent that deserves cultivation. Because watching you succeed felt better than any business deal I've ever closed. Because somewhere in the last 3 years, the invisible girl counting my patterns became the only thing I actually looked forward to seeing. He put his phone away, stepped closer. And because I'm selfish enough to want credit for it, want you to know that I've been paying attention, that I see you, Nomi. All of you. This is insane. I wrapped my arms around myself, trying to contain the chaos expanding in my chest. You don't even know me. Not really. You've watched me from a distance, funded me like some secret patron, but you don't know what I'm actually like, what I want, what terrifies me. Then tell me. He closed the remaining distance, his hands coming up to frame my face again. 59 minutes until midnight. Tell me everything I don't know. Let me actually see you instead of just watching. The champagne was making me brave. Or maybe it was the cold, or the surreal nature of this entire night, or 3 years of being invisible finally breaking open into visibility. I'm terrified of being controlled, I heard myself say, of losing myself in someone else's gravity. I watched my mother disappear into my father's expectations, become this hollow version of who she used to be, and I swore I'd never let that happen to me. That's why you stay invisible. Easier to preserve yourself when no one's trying to change you. Yes. The honesty felt like stripping skin. And I'm terrified of you specifically, of men like you. Because you don't just take space, you consume it. You walk into rooms and everyone reorganizes around you. How do I stay myself around someone who bends reality? By being exactly what you just were. His thumb stroked my cheekbones, gentle and devastating. By telling me the truth. By setting boundaries I have to respect or lose you. By being strong enough to walk away if I ever make you feel hollow. You make it sound simple. It's not simple. It's the hardest thing I've ever tried to do. His forehead dropped to rest against mine, his breath warm against my frozen face. Not controlling you, not possessing you, just being near you and letting that be enough. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled away to check it, grateful for the interruption, for the chance to breathe. Valentina. A photo of her in a wedding dress that looked like it came from a costume shop, standing next to a bassist with impressive facial piercings and terrible posture, both grinning like fools. She did it. I showed Octavio the screen. Got married by Elvis, looks happy. His expression cycled through several emotions too quickly to name, then settled on something like resignation. She does look happy, ridiculous, but happy. You're really going to let this go? Not send someone to drag her back? Not threaten the bassist? I'm going to try something radical. He took another sip of champagne, grimaced slightly at the cold. I'm going to trust that my sister knows what she needs, that forcing her back would only push her further away, that maybe the girl counting my patterns was right about me needing to learn when to release control. Character development in less than an hour. Impressive. Don't sound so surprised. You've already changed me more than you realize. He gestured at the rooftop, at the helicopter standing silent, at the champagne, and the cold, and the abandoned gala. I don't do spontaneous, Nomi. I don't cancel plans. I don't sit on frozen rooftops drinking from paper cups. But here I am, completely off script. And it feels terrifying, exhilarating. His smile was genuine, unguarded. Like maybe being predictable was another form of prison, and you just handed me a key. We finished the champagne as midnight approached, trading stories about worst tattoo requests, favorite hidden spots in Chicago, the difference between loneliness and solitude. He told me about taking over his father's empire at 21, about the pressure of legacy and violence and maintaining control. I told him about my mother's disappearance into marriage, about choosing art over security, about the terror and freedom of permanent marks. 30 seconds, he said, checking his phone one last time. Decision time, Bambina mia. Do I get my midnight kiss, or do we part as friends who shared champagne and honest conversation? I looked at him, really looked, at the man who'd funded my dreams anonymously, who'd fought for tattoo art in prestigious museums, who'd sat on a frozen rooftop asking me about philosophy instead of demanding anything. At the danger and the vulnerability wrapped together in expensive clothes and eagle tattoos. At the way he was looking at me like I was the only thing in the world worth counting down to. 20 seconds, I whispered. His hands found my waist, pulling me closer but not forcing, always giving me space to choose. My hands came up to his chest, feeling his heartbeat accelerate under my palms, the eagle's wings rising and falling with his breathing. 10 seconds. The city below erupted early, someone's countdown off or their patience expired. Fireworks exploded across the lake, exactly where I'd sketched them, exactly as I'd anticipated. Light and color and chaos. 5. His forehead touched mine again, our breath mingling in the frozen air, champagne and anticipation. 3. I'm terrified, I admitted. Good. So am I. 1. The world dissolved into midnight, into fireworks and champagne, and Octavio's mouth claiming mine with a certainty that made my knees weak. His kiss was nothing like I'd imagined. Nothing like the controlled man at family dinners. This was hunger and restraint, fighting each other. Gentleness edged with possession. 3 years of watching finally becoming touching. I kissed him back with equal ferocity, my hands fisting in his shirt, pulling him closer, even as some rational part of my brain screamed that this was dangerous. This was stupid. This was going to destroy the careful invisibility I'd built. but I was so tired of invisible. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, the fireworks were still going, the city still celebrating, and everything had changed. "Happy New Year, Nomi Marino." His voice was rough, affected. "Thank you for letting me see you." "Happy New Year, Octavio Conti." I traced the line of his jaw, bold now, high on champagne and kisses and possibility. "Thank you for actually looking." We stayed on that rooftop until 2 a.m, kissing and talking and watching the city settle into the new year. Then he walked me down to my apartment, kissed me one more time at my door with a thoroughness that left me dizzy, and disappeared into the stairwell. No phone number exchanged, no promises made. Just the taste of him on my lips, and the feeling that something fundamental had shifted in my carefully ordered world. I fell asleep sketching his face from memory, trying to capture the moment his control had cracked into genuine smile. When I woke up the next morning, he was gone. Really gone. No text, no call, no follow-up to the most significant New Year's Eve of my life. And I convinced myself it was fine. Better this way. One perfect night, preserved in memory like a tattoo. Permanent, but not requiring maintenance. 2 weeks later, I was in my studio working on a commission when the door chimed. I looked up, expecting a client, and found Octavio Conti standing in my workspace like he'd materialized from my sketches. "I have a proposition," he said. No greeting, no preamble. "And before you tell me to learn to say please, I'm asking. Please hear me out." I set down my tattoo gun carefully, trying to keep my hands from shaking. "I'm listening." "I need someone to accompany me to social functions. Galas, charity events, business dinners. Someone from outside my world who can humanize me to the civilian board members I'm trying to impress for a city council nomination." He moved deeper into the studio, studying the flash art on my walls with genuine interest. Someone with talent and intelligence, and the ability to make me seem like more than just a dangerous legacy. "You want me to be your fake girlfriend." The words tasted bitter. "Your humanizing prop. I want you to be my real partner in a mutually beneficial arrangement." He turned to face me fully. "You attend events with me for the next 10 months while I build my legitimate political portfolio. In exchange, I fund your gallery. The one you've been planning to open that combines traditional tattoo art with contemporary installations. Complete funding, prime location, connections to collectors and critics." My heart stopped. "How do you know about the gallery?" "Because I read the business plan you've been working on for 3 years. The one Valentina showed me last Christmas when she was trying to convince me you were worth knowing." His expression softened slightly. "You are worth knowing, Nomi. And your vision deserves to exist in the world. I can make that happen. If you're willing to help me become someone worthy of public trust." "This is insane. This is business, with benefits we both need." He pulled out a folder, thick with documents. Contract terms, compensation structure, exit clauses, everything in writing, nothing left to uncertainty. I stared at the folder like it might bite me. "And what happens when the 10 months are over? When you've won your council seat and I've opened my gallery?" "Then we part as professional collaborators. Or we continue, if that's what we both want." He set the folder on my work table. No pressure, no expectations beyond the agreed terms. Just 2 people helping each other achieve goals that matter. "You're asking me to fake a relationship for political gain. I'm asking you to be yourself at events where I need people to see me as human instead of dangerous. The relationship part." He moved closer, his hand coming up to tuck a strand of hair behind my ear. "The relationship part might not be as fake as either of us wants to pretend." The touch sent electricity through my skin, memory of midnight kisses flooding back. "This is a terrible idea. Probably." His smile was slight, dangerous. But you're going to say yes. Because you want that gallery. Because you're curious about where this could go. Because being invisible was safe, but being seen feels addictive. He was right. I hated that he was right. I need to read the contract. Take your time. I'll wait. I spent the next hour reading every clause, every stipulation, every exit strategy. It was remarkably fair, almost generous. Full funding for the gallery, no strings attached beyond my attendance at specified events. My name on everything, my artistic vision respected, my autonomy preserved. Too good to be true, which meant there had to be a catch I wasn't seeing. What do you really want from this? I asked finally, setting the contract aside. The truth, not the political optics or the gallery funding. What do you actually get out of pretending to date me? He was silent for a long moment, studying my face with that intensity that made me feel simultaneously exposed and protected. I get to be near you without feeling like I'm corrupting something pure. I get to see you succeed and know I helped. I get to kiss you at events and call it performance. His voice dropped lower. And I get to pretend for 10 months that someone like you could actually choose someone like me, even if it's just for show. The honesty was devastating, more dangerous than any contract. Okay, I heard myself say. I'll do it, but I have conditions beyond what's in the contract. Name them. No lying, not to each other. If this starts feeling wrong, we talk about it. If feelings change, we acknowledge it. No pretending in private that we're pretending in public. Agreed. And if I ever feel like I'm disappearing into your world, like I'm becoming my mother, you let me walk away. No questions, no consequences, just freedom. His jaw tightened, but he nodded. You have my word. You'll always be free to leave. Then we have a deal. I extended my hand for a professional shake. He took it, pulled me close, and kissed me instead. Deep and claiming and absolutely inappropriate for a business arrangement. When he released me, my lips were swollen and my heart was racing, and I knew with absolute certainty that I'd just agreed to something that would change everything. First event is Thursday, he said, straightening his shirt like he hadn't just destroyed my equilibrium. Gala at the art museum. Dress code is cocktail formal. I'll send a car. I can take the train. You can, but you won't. Because part of this arrangement is letting me take care of logistics. He moved toward the door, that predatory grace making him seem to float. Get used to cars and drivers and security, Bambina Mia. It's part of the package. After he left, I stood in my empty studio, staring at the contract that would fund my dreams and potentially destroy my carefully maintained independence. 10 months. I could do 10 months of pretending, of galas and kisses that might not be fake, of being seen by someone who'd spent 3 years watching from the shadows. What could possibly go wrong? The first 3 months passed in a blur of designer dresses and champagne I didn't have to pay for, of gallery openings where Octavio's hand stayed possessively at the small of my back, of learning to smile through political small talk while internally cataloging exit routes and calculating the cost of freedom. The gallery was taking shape in a converted warehouse in the West Loop, my vision manifesting in exposed brick and industrial lighting and wall space, designed to showcase both traditional tattoo flash and contemporary installations. Octavio had been true to his word, funding everything, connecting me with contractors and collectors, never once trying to influence the artistic direction. In public, we were perfect. The dangerous legacy and the talented artist, reformation through love, power softened by creativity. His poll numbers were climbing steadily, and the media ate up our story like candy. In private, we were complicated. You're doing it again, I said, watching him check his phone for the 4th time in 10 minutes. We were in his penthouse, the floor-to-ceiling windows showing Chicago spread out below like a circuit board of lights. It was late April, almost midnight. and we'd just returned from a fundraising dinner where I'd smiled until my face hurt. Doing what? He didn't look up from the screen, checking threats instead of being present. I moved to the window, pressing my palm against the cold glass. We're alone. The performance is over. You can stop monitoring. The monitoring never stops. But he set the phone down, moved to stand behind me, his arms coming around my waist. There are people who would love to see me fail, who'd use you to get to me if they thought you mattered. Do I matter? The question escaped before I could stop it. Really matter, or just as part of your political image rehabilitation? His arms tightened. You know you matter. I know you kiss me like I matter. I know you funded my dream. I know you introduce me to important people and make sure I have everything I need. I turned in his embrace to face him. But I don't know if you'd still be here if there was no contract, if there was no gallery, if I was just Nomi, invisible again. You're never going to be invisible again. His hand came up, cupping my face. I won't allow it. That's not the same as choosing me, isn't it? His gray eyes searched mine. Choosing to make sure you're seen, choosing to protect your visibility, choosing to destroy anything that tries to make you small again. That's not choice. It's control disguised as protection. It's you deciding what I need instead of asking. We'd had variations of this argument before, the fundamental tension of our arrangement playing out in the space between contract and feeling, between what we'd agreed to and what we were becoming. Tell me what you need, he said finally, releasing me, stepping back to give me space I didn't actually want. Clearly, so I'm not guessing. I moved away from the window, pacing his living room with its expensive furniture and art that cost more than my entire previous life. Everything here was beautiful and curated and controlled, just like I was becoming. I need to know what happens when the contract ends. I stopped, forcing myself to look at him directly. 4 more months, Octavio. 4 months until you've secured your council nomination and I've opened the gallery. Then what? Then we renegotiate. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I have right now. He moved to the bar, poured 2 glasses of whiskey, handed me one even though I rarely drank the expensive stuff. I don't know what happens when the performance ends, Nomi. I don't know if this is real or if we've just convinced ourselves it's real, because the acting is that good. The honesty shouldn't have hurt, but it did. Sharp and clean, like a tattoo gun going too deep. I think about that midnight kiss, I admitted, taking a sip of the whiskey, letting it burn. About whether it would have happened if Valentina hadn't run away, if you hadn't landed that helicopter, if I hadn't been alone on the rooftop. Was it fate or just convenient timing? Does it matter? Yes. Because if it was just timing, just circumstances, then none of this is real. We're just 2 people who happened to collide and mistook the impact for connection. He set his glass down hard enough to make me flinch. You think I fund galleries and attend boring dinners and let photographers follow us around because of convenient timing? You think I spend every free moment thinking about you because of circumstances? I think you're very good at making things happen that serve your interests, and right now, I serve your interests perfectly. Sweet artist girlfriend humanizing the dangerous man. Great optics. Perfect story. That's what you think this is? His voice had gone cold, controlled. The voice he used in business meetings when someone had made a critical error. Optics and story, isn't it? Come here. No. Nomi, come here. Not a request. A command. I stayed where I was, chin lifted, refusing to obey out of pure principle. You don't get to order me around in private just because I smile and comply in public. Something shifted in his expression. Recognition, maybe. Or respect. He crossed the distance instead, moving into my space with that predatory grace that still made my pulse jump after 3 months. "You're right," he said quietly. "I don't get to order you. I don't get to control you. I don't get to decide what we are or what we become." His hands came up, framing my face with devastating gentleness. "But I get to tell you the truth. And the truth is that I started this for political optics, and somewhere around the third week, when I watched you negotiate with the gallery contractor in 3 languages and refused to compromise on your artistic vision, I forgot this was supposed to be fake." My breath caught. "Octavio, I forgot it was supposed to end. I forgot there was a contract with a termination date. I started thinking in terms of permanence and forever, and all the things I said I'd never want with anyone." His forehead dropped to rest against mine. "And that terrifies me more than any business rival or political opponent ever could, because you have the power to destroy me in ways violence never could." "I don't want to destroy you." "I know. That's what makes you dangerous." His thumb traced my lower lip. "You could, easily, and you choose not to. That choice is more binding than any contract." I kissed him then, rising on my toes, claiming his mouth with urgency that 3 months of controlled public appearances had built into pressure. He responded immediately, his hands sliding into my hair, destroying the careful styling, pulling me against him like he wanted to consume me. We'd kissed countless times since New Year's, chaste kisses for cameras, longer ones in dark corners of galleries, heated make-out sessions in the back of his car. But this was different. This was honest, raw, every wall between us crumbling into need and truth. "Bedroom," I gasped against his mouth. "Are you sure?" Even now giving me the choice, respecting my autonomy. "I'm terrified, but I'm sure." He lifted me effortlessly, my legs wrapping around his waist as he carried me through the penthouse to his bedroom. We'd never been in here before, always careful to maintain some boundary between performance and reality. But boundaries were dissolving fast, the contract becoming irrelevant against the reality of his hands on my skin, my fingers working the buttons of his shirt. We fell into his bed tangled together, shedding clothes between kisses, learning the geography of each other with hands and mouths, and whispered admissions of want. He was gentle and fierce in turns, asking permission with his eyes before each new touch, making sure I was present and willing and choosing this. And I was choosing it. Choosing him. Choosing to trust that the connection was real, even if the beginning had been performance. Afterward, we lay in the dark, my head on his chest, his fingers tracing lazy patterns along my spine. The eagle tattoo rose and fell with his breathing, that permanent mark of isolation and power. "Tell me about the first time you noticed me," I whispered. Really noticed, not just observed. He was quiet for so long I thought he might not answer. Then, "Valentina's 21st birthday. You were in the garden, avoiding the party, drawing in that sketchbook you always carried. I came outside to take a business call and found you completely absorbed in capturing the way moonlight hit the fountain. You didn't even notice me standing there for 10 minutes, watching you work." I noticed. I pressed a kiss to his chest, right over the eagle's heart. "I always noticed you. I just got very good at pretending I didn't." "Why?" "Because noticing dangerous things felt like inviting them to notice you back, and I wasn't ready to be seen by someone who could consume me. And now? Now I'm choosing to be consumed, hoping it doesn't mean disappearing." I propped myself up on my elbow to look at him properly. "Promise me something. Anything. Promise that if I start losing myself in your world, if I start becoming some hollow version of who I am, you'll tell me. You'll let me go before I disappear completely." His jaw tightened. "I promise I'll never let you disappear. But I won't let you go. There's a difference." "That's exactly what I'm afraid of." "I know." He pulled me back down against his chest, his arms secure around me. But fear and trust aren't mutually exclusive. You can be terrified and still choose to stay. That's what bravery is. We fell asleep like that, tangled together, the contract temporarily forgotten in favor of something more fundamental and more fragile. When I woke up, he was already gone. A note on his pillow in precise handwriting. Council meeting at 7 a.m. Stay as long as you want. Alessandro will drive you home when you're ready. Coffee in the kitchen. Fresh pastries from that place you like. Last night wasn't performance. Oh. I held the note, reading it 3 times, memorizing the admission. Then I got up, found one of his shirts, and padded through the penthouse to the kitchen where expensive coffee and pastries from my favorite bakery waited. Alessandro, his driver and sometimes security, was reading a newspaper at the kitchen counter. He looked up, utterly unsurprised to find me in his boss's shirt. "Morning, Miss Marino. Coffee?" "Please." I accepted the cup he poured, settled onto a stool. "Does this happen often? Morning after awkwardness with random women?" "You're not random. And no, it doesn't." He returned to his paper. "You're the first person he's ever brought to the penthouse overnight. Usually keeps his personal life very separate." "What does that mean?" "Means you matter. Beyond whatever contract you signed." He glanced up, his expression kind. "He's different with you. More human. Less controlled. The family's noticed." "Is that good or bad?" "Depends on who you ask. His mother thinks you're a pleasant distraction. His father thinks you're a political asset. Valentina thinks you're perfect for him." He smiled slightly. "I think you're probably the best thing that's happened to him in years. But I also think you're in for a complicated ride. Our world doesn't do simple." I'm starting to understand that. I returned to my apartment 2 hours later, my hair still messy from his hands, my skin still marked with his kisses. Valentina was waiting in the living room we shared, back from her extended Vegas honeymoon, looking suntanned and happy and immediately suspicious. "You slept with him." Not a question. "Good morning to you too." "Nomi, you slept with my brother, the one you were supposed to be fake dating for a business arrangement." She followed me to my room, completely ignoring my attempts at privacy. "Tell me everything." So I did. The whole messy truth. From the midnight kiss to the contract to last night's dissolution of boundaries. She listened without interrupting, her expression cycling through surprise and concern, and something that might have been approval. "You love him," she said when I finished. "I don't know what I feel. It's too complicated to be love." "Nomi, you spent 3 years watching him from a distance. You memorized his patterns. You counted how many times he ignored you, because each time hurt. You've been half in love with him since the beginning. You just called it observation instead of feeling." The accuracy made my chest tight. "That doesn't mean it's real love. That could just be fascination, proximity, good sex." Was it good sex? Phenomenal sex, but that's not the point. The point is that you're terrified of becoming your mother, of disappearing into someone else's gravity. She took my hand, squeezed it. "But Nomi, you're not her. You're fierce and talented, and you've spent your whole life building boundaries. Those don't just dissolve because you love someone. They evolve. They become negotiable instead of absolute." What if he's just very good at making me feel chosen when really I'm just useful? Then he's a sociopath, and I'm a terrible judge of character. She smiled. But I don't think he is. I think he's been in love with you as long as you've loved him. He just hid it better because control is his default setting. And now you're both pretending it's still fake because admitting it's real is terrifying. So what do? You finish the contract. You open your gallery. You give yourself permission to be both independent and connected. And you stop looking for reasons to run. before he gives you actual cause. She made it sound simple. It wasn't simple, but over the next 4 months I tried to balance my growing feelings with my fierce independence, to let Octavio close without letting him consume me, to build my gallery while building something more permanent with a man who dealt in absolutes. The gallery opening in late August was perfect. Critics loved the blend of traditional and contemporary. Collectors bought pieces at prices I'd never imagined, and Octavio stood beside me all night, proud and possessive and perfect. When everyone finally left and we were alone in the space I'd built, surrounded by art that represented years of dreaming, he pulled a document from his jacket. "Contract's complete," he said, offering it to me. "Gallery funded and opened. Political image successfully rehabilitated. All terms fulfilled." I took the paper, stared at it. Our arrangement in black and white, officially concluded. So now what? My voice came out smaller than intended. "Now you decide." He moved closer, his hands finding my waist. "We can part as professional collaborators, or we can try this for real. No contract, no terms, no exit clauses. Just you and me, figuring out if what we built during performance can survive reality. You're asking me to choose you, for real this time. I'm asking if you want to try, knowing it'll be complicated, knowing my world comes with dangers, knowing I'll struggle with control and you'll struggle with independence, and we'll probably fight about both constantly." I thought about the last 10 months, the galas and kisses, the nights in his penthouse and mornings in my studio, the way he'd funded my dream while respecting my vision, the gradual dissolution of boundaries between performance and truth. "I want to try," I heard myself say. "But I need you to understand something. I'm not signing a new contract. I'm not agreeing to forever. I'm agreeing to see what this could be without the safety net of predetermined endings. That terrifies me more than any contract ever could." "Good. We should both be terrified. Means we're risking something real." He kissed me then, deep and claiming, surrounded by my art in the space he'd helped build. When we broke apart, he was smiling that rare, genuine smile. "Happy gallery opening, Bambina mia." "Happy new beginning, Octavio." We left the gallery hand in hand, the contract forgotten on the floor behind us, stepping into something more dangerous and more honest than either of us had planned. What I didn't know yet was that dangers from my past were already moving into position, that choosing to be seen would make me a target, that love and protection would collide in ways neither of us could control. But for that moment, in the warm August night, I was just happy. Terrified and hopeful, and completely, honestly happy. The photograph arrived 3 weeks after the gallery opening, slipped under my studio door in a plain manila envelope with no return address. Me, 2 years ago. In Lorenzo Greco's photography studio, posing for what I'd thought was an artistic portrait series. Except the photo in the envelope wasn't from any series I'd agreed to. This was from after, from the moment I'd fallen asleep on his couch, exhausted from the shoot. This was me unconscious, vulnerable, my shirt riding up to expose skin I hadn't consented to reveal. My hands shook as I turned the photo over. One word written on the back in block letters. More. I barely made it to the trash can before I vomited. Lorenzo Greco. My ex-boyfriend from before I'd met Valentina, before I'd become invisible at Conti family dinners, back when I was just a struggling artist taking any modeling work to pay rent. He'd been charming and talented, and I'd trusted him right up until the moment I'd found his private collection of photos taken while I slept, while I changed, while I trusted him with my vulnerability. I'd left him immediately, threatened legal action if he ever published or sold those photos. Thought I'd escaped clean when he'd seemed to accept the breakup, moved on to other models, other victims probably. But clearly he'd kept the photos, and now someone wanted me to know they existed. I sat on my studio floor, back against the wall, trying to breathe through the panic, trying to think rationally about what this meant and what I should do. Tell Octavio. That was the obvious answer. Tell him, and let him handle it with whatever resources and connections he had. Let him protect me. Except that felt like exactly the kind of surrender I'd sworn to avoid. Becoming the damsel who needed rescue, who brought danger into his world instead of light, who proved his mother right about me being a liability instead of an asset. I could handle this myself. Track down Lorenzo, threaten him with legal action again, find out who'd sent the photo and shut it down before it became a real problem. Except I'd tried that strategy before, and clearly it hadn't worked. My phone rang. Octavio. Like he could sense when I was spiraling. Hey. I tried to sound normal. What's up? Are you at the studio? His voice had that edge that meant something was wrong. Don't leave. I'm sending Alessandro to pick you up. Why? What happened? Just trust me. Stay inside, lock the door. Don't open it for anyone except Alessandro. I'll explain when I see you. He ended the call before I could argue, which meant this wasn't about protection. This was about active threat. Something he knew that I didn't. I shoved the photo back in its envelope, locked my studio door, and waited. Trying not to think about how many more photos Lorenzo might have. Trying not to calculate how much damage they could do to Octavio's political career, to my gallery's reputation, to the life we'd been carefully building. Alessandro arrived 7 minutes later, knocked our agreed pattern, waited for me to verify through the peephole before I opened the door. Miss Marino, Mr. Conti asked me to bring you to the penthouse immediately. What's happening? He'll explain, but we need to leave now. His hand hovered near the weapon I knew he carried under his jacket. Please don't argue. I didn't argue. Just grabbed my bag with the envelope inside and followed him to the car, my mind racing through scenarios, each worse than the last. The ride to Octavio's penthouse took 15 minutes through late afternoon traffic. Alessandro kept checking mirrors, taking random turns, clearly making sure we weren't followed, which meant the threat was real and immediate, and probably connected to the photo I'd received. Octavio was pacing when I entered the penthouse, his phone pressed to his ear, his free hand clenched into a fist. He looked up when I walked in, relief and fury warring across his face. She's here. I'll call you back. He ended the call, crossed to me in 3 strides, his hands framing my face, checking me for damage. Are you okay? Did anyone approach you? Did anything unusual happen today? Besides you sending armed security to collect me. I pulled the envelope from my bag, handed it to him. This happened about an hour ago. I watched his face as he opened it, watched the fury crystallize into something cold and lethal. He studied the photo for 10 long seconds, then turned it over to read the word on the back. Who took this? His voice was terrifyingly calm. My ex-boyfriend, Lorenzo Greco, photographer. I posed for him 2 years ago before we broke up. I didn't know about these photos until I found his collection. I threatened legal action. I thought he'd destroyed them. Clearly he didn't. Octavio set the photo down carefully, like it might explode. And now someone's using them as leverage. Leverage for what? And for me to withdraw from the council race. For you to disappear from my life. For us to publicly end our relationship and issue a statement about it being a business arrangement all along. He pulled out his phone, showed me a text message from an unknown number. I received this 2 hours ago. The message was blunt. Drop out of the race, or we release everything. Your artist girlfriend's secrets. Your family's less legitimate business dealings. Your father's connections to organized crime. You have 48 hours to decide. My stomach dropped. This is because of me. Because I brought my past into your world. This is because someone's desperate to keep me off the council. You're just the most obvious pressure point. He pocketed his phone, moved to the windows, staring out at the city like he could see the threat materializing. They've been digging for months, probably since we announced our relationship. Found Lorenzo, found his collection. Found enough to build a narrative that damages both of us. So what do we do? You do nothing. You stay here under security, completely protected while I handle this. That's not a solution. That's you deciding how to manage me. That's me keeping you safe. He turned from the window, his expression harder than I'd ever seen it. This is my world, Nomi. The part I've been trying to keep you separate from. The part where people use photographs and threats and violence to get what they want. And I won't let you become collateral damage in a fight that's ultimately about power. I'm already collateral damage. That photo exists, probably dozens more. Lorenzo won't stop unless someone makes him stop, and threats clearly don't work on him. Then I'll make him stop permanently. The way he said it made my blood run cold. What does that mean? It means I have resources for handling people who threaten what's mine. It means Lorenzo Greco is about to have a very bad week. It means whoever's coordinating this campaign against me is about to discover that attacking my family comes with consequences. I'm not your family. I'm your girlfriend. There's a difference. There's no difference. He closed the distance between us, his hands finding my shoulders. You're mine to protect. You're mine to avenge. You're mine in every way that matters, contract or no contract. And I will burn down anyone who tries to use you against me. There it was, the possessiveness I'd been afraid of, the consuming control disguised as protection, the thing my mother had drowned in, the thing I'd sworn to never accept. You don't get to decide that, I said, stepping back from his grip. You don't get to handle my problems by making them stop permanently without my input. This is my past, my mistake, my vulnerability. I get a say in how it's addressed. Not when addressing it puts you in danger. Being with you puts me in danger. That's the reality of your world, Octavio. I accepted that when I agreed to try this for real. But accepting danger doesn't mean accepting to be managed like a liability instead of a partner. We stared at each other, the fundamental conflict of our relationship crystallizing into this moment. His need to protect versus my need for agency. His world of absolute control versus my refusal to be controlled. Tell me what you want me to do then, he said finally, his jaw tight with the effort of surrendering control. Tell me how you want to handle this. I want to confront Lorenzo myself. Find out who hired him to release the photos. Get copies of everything he has so we know the full extent of what we're dealing with. Absolutely not. That puts you directly in contact with someone who violated your consent once and is threatening to do it again. Then come with me. Bring Alessandro. Bring your entire security team. But let me face this instead of hiding while you handle it. He was silent for a long moment, clearly fighting every instinct that told him to lock me in a fortress and destroy threats from a distance. You go nowhere without security, he said finally. You say nothing that could be used against you, and the moment I determine the situation is escalating, we leave. Those are my conditions. Agreed. As long as you agree that I'm leading this conversation, that you're there for protection but not to take over. That's going to be very difficult for me. I know. But that's the difference between partnership and possession. You have to let me face my own consequences even when you want to shield me from them. His hand came up, cupping my face. I hate this. I hate that you're in danger because of choices I made to be public with you. I hate that I can't just eliminate the threat and keep you safe. You can keep me safe. By standing beside me instead of in front of me. By trusting that I'm strong enough to handle this. You're one of the strongest people I know. That's not the question. The question is whether I'm strong enough to watch you face danger and not lose my mind. Guess we're about to find out. We found Lorenzo 3 hours later at his studio in Wicker Park. the same space where he'd photographed me 2 years ago. Alessandro had tracked him down through connections I didn't want to examine too closely, and now we stood outside the building, Octavio radiating controlled fury beside me. "Last chance to let me handle this," he said. "Not a chance." I pushed open the door, climbed the stairs to the second-floor studio, knocked before I could lose my nerve. Lorenzo opened the door looking exactly as I remembered. Artfully disheveled, expensive camera around his neck, that smile that had once seemed charming and now just looked predatory. "Know me." His eyes traveled over me, then landed on Octavio and Alessandro behind me. His smile faltered. "This is unexpected." "We need to talk about the photos." I forced myself to sound calm, professional. "The ones you promised to destroy." "I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't lie. Someone sent me one today. Threatened my boyfriend with releasing more unless he drops out of his council race. So either you're working with them, or someone stole your collection. Either way, I need to know everything." He stepped back, letting us enter the studio. It looked the same, exactly the same, which somehow made it worse. Same couch where I'd fallen asleep, same lighting equipment, same dark room in the back where he'd developed his private collection. "Someone approached me 3 weeks ago," Lorenzo said, not meeting my eyes. "Offered me money for exclusive access to certain photos. Said they were doing opposition research on a political candidate. I didn't know it was him." He glanced at Octavio. "Didn't know you two were actually together. Who approached you?" Octavio's voice was deadly calm. "I don't know. All communication was through encrypted messages. They paid in cryptocurrency. Very careful about anonymity. But you still sold them, sold photos you took without my consent." I could feel my voice shaking now, anger overwhelming the professional calm. "Photos you promised to destroy when I threatened legal action. I kept them as insurance. I didn't think you'd actually follow through with the threat." He had the grace to look ashamed. "I'm sorry, Nomi. I know that doesn't mean anything. But I am sorry. Sorry doesn't fix this. Sorry doesn't unviolate my privacy." I moved closer to him, letting all my fury show. "But here's what you're going to do. You're going to give me every single photo you have, digital and physical. You're going to tell me everything about the person who contacted you. And you're going to sign a legal document promising to never create, distribute, or profit from any image of me ever again. And if I refuse?" Octavio spoke for the first time, his voice soft and terrifying. "Then I make one phone call and your studio burns down with you inside it. Choose carefully." Lorenzo went pale. "You can't threaten me." "That wasn't a threat. That was information about consequences." Octavio pulled out his phone. "You have 10 seconds to comply. After that, I stop being reasonable." I should have been horrified by the casual violence in Octavio's tone. Should have intervened, insisted on legal remedies instead of mob justice. But standing in that studio where Lorenzo had violated my trust, looking at the man who'd commodified my vulnerability, I found I couldn't summon the energy to be horrified. Sometimes the only language predators understood was greater predation. "Okay." Lorenzo's hands were shaking. "Okay, I'll give you everything. Just don't hurt me." It took an hour to collect everything. Hard drives and memory cards and physical prints he'd kept in a safe. Alessandro documented it all. Had Lorenzo sign legal documents drafted by lawyers Octavio had on speed dial, made sure every image was accounted for and destroyed. When we finally left, I felt hollowed out but cleaner somehow. Like lancing an infection, painful but necessary. "You okay?" Octavio asked in the car, his hand finding mine. "I will be. Eventually." I leaned against his shoulder, exhausted. "Thank you for letting me lead that, for not taking over even though I know you wanted to. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done. Watching him look at you, hearing him justify his actions, not being able to just eliminate the problem. His arm came around me, protective but not suffocating. But you were right. You needed to face it. I just needed to be there in case you fell. I didn't fall. No. You were magnificent. He pressed a kiss to my temple. Though for the record, I'm still going to find whoever hired him and make sure they understand the consequences of threatening you. I know. Just maybe involve me in that process instead of handling it silently. I'll try. No promises. We returned to his penthouse as the sun set over Chicago, the city lights beginning their evening performance. Alessandro stationed himself in the lobby. Extra security materialized at entry points, and I was effectively under lockdown until the threat was fully neutralized. I hate this, I said, staring out at the city I couldn't freely move through anymore. Feeling trapped because someone decided to weaponize my past. It's temporary, until I identify and eliminate the source. And then what? The next person who decides I'm a weakness to exploit? The next scandal they try to manufacture? How many times do we go through this before it becomes my permanent reality? He was quiet, clearly understanding the larger question beneath my words. Are you asking if this relationship is worth the danger it brings? I'm asking if I can maintain my independence while being perpetually protected. If I can still be myself while being yours. You're always yourself. That's what makes you dangerous to people who rely on controlling narratives. He pulled me away from the window, turning me to face him. But you're right that being with me comes with costs. Being seen with me makes you a target. Being protected by me limits your freedom. And I don't know how to fix that without either leaving you vulnerable or keeping you caged. So we're at an impasse. We're at a decision point. You can choose safety in separation or danger in connection. I'll respect whatever you choose, even if it destroys me. I thought about the last 10 months, the contract and the gallery, and the gradual dissolution of boundaries between performance and reality. Thought about Lorenzo's studio, and the photos now destroyed, and the feeling of facing my violation with Octavio beside me instead of alone. Thought about my mother disappearing into my father's control, versus actively choosing danger while maintaining my core self. I choose danger, I said finally. But I need you to promise something. Anything. Promise that you'll keep choosing partnership over protection when those two things conflict. That you'll let me stand beside you in fights instead of always shielding me from them. That you'll trust my strength even when it terrifies you. That's asking me to fundamentally change how I approach protecting the people I love. I know, but it's the only way this works. The only way I don't become my mother. He pulled me close, his forehead resting against mine. I promised to try. To fail sometimes, probably frequently, but to keep trying. To choose us over my need for control. That's all I'm asking. Effort and honesty. We sealed it with a kiss that tasted like new agreements and old fears, and the dangerous hope that maybe we could build something that honored both safety and freedom. 2 weeks later, Octavio identified the source of the blackmail attempt. A rival political family with organized crime connections who'd seen him as a threat to their control of the council. He handled it with swift brutality I chose not to examine too closely, and the threat evaporated as quickly as it had materialized. Life returned to what passed for normal in our world. Gallery events and political fundraisers, mornings in my studio and nights in his penthouse, learning to negotiate the space between independence and connection. But the photographs had changed something fundamental, had proven that being with Octavio meant accepting a level of danger and scrutiny that would never fully disappear, that choosing to be seen meant accepting the costs of visibility, and I'd chosen it anyway, chosen him, chosen us, even knowing that greater dangers were probably already forming in the shadows, waiting for their moment to strike. The months after Lorenzo's exposure settled into a rhythm that felt almost sustainable. Almost. Octavio won his council seat in November by a decisive margin, My gallery's second exhibition in December sold out completely, and we spent our first holiday season together navigating family dinners where his mother still looked at me like I was temporary, and his father calculated my worth in political capital. Valentina, at least, was genuinely happy for us. She and Axel had returned from Vegas to actually build a life together, and watching her navigate marriage with someone who saw her as an equal partner, instead of property, gave me hope that I could do the same. But hope and reality were different countries, and I was learning the border between them was heavily guarded. It was late January when the real scope of Octavio's world revealed itself. I'd known intellectually that the Conti family had connections to organized crime. That legitimate business was code for money laundering and territory control disguised as real estate investments. I'd known and chosen to look away from specifics, to focus on the Octavio who funded galleries and fought for tattoo art in museums, instead of the Octavio who made people disappear when they threatened his family. But ignorance was a luxury I'd been allowed, not a permanent condition, and that luxury evaporated the night I walked into his study unannounced, and found him with blood on his knuckles and murder in his eyes. Don't. His voice stopped me in the doorway. Don't come in here right now, Nomi. Go back to bed. But I'd already seen. The man kneeling on the floor, face swollen and bleeding. Alessandro standing guard with a weapon visible for the first time in my presence. The cold calculation on Octavio's face that I'd never seen directed at a human being before. What's happening? My voice came out steady despite my racing heart. Business, not your concern. Please leave. If it's happening in your study while I'm in your bed, it's my concern. I stepped fully into the room, forcing myself to look at the damage, to not turn away from this reality. Who is he? Someone who thought he could steal from my family, someone who needs to understand consequences. The man on the floor looked up at me, desperate. Please, I have kids. I'll pay it back, I swear. Please don't let him kill me. Something cold settled in my stomach. Octavio, come into the hall with me. Now. For a moment, I thought he'd refuse. Thought he'd choose the violence over me, prove every fear I'd ever had about being consumed by his world. But then he moved, following me into the hallway, closing the study door behind us. You can't ask me to stop, he said before I could speak. This is how my world works. This is what keeps us safe. What keeps you safe? By torturing people who steal from you? By becoming the monster everyone already thinks you are? Yes. No apology in his voice, just cold honesty. Because mercy gets interpreted as weakness, and weakness in my world gets people killed, including the people I love. So you'd rather kill first? Hurt people who might have families, might have made desperate choices, might deserve a chance to make it right? He stole from us 3 times, Nomi. This isn't a desperate choice. This is calculated theft, and the consequences were clearly communicated. His hands clenched, the bloody knuckles stark evidence of violence I'd pretended not to see. I don't enjoy this. But I don't get to choose whether to enforce rules. I just get to choose how brutal the enforcement is. I looked at him. Really looked at the man I'd chosen to love. The gallery patron and council member and thoughtful partner. And beneath all that, the enforcer, the legacy of violence, the Conti heir who'd been trained from childhood to make hard choices without hesitation. What happens to him? I asked quietly. After you're done enforcing consequences? He lives, because I'm trying to build something different, trying to transition this family into legitimate operations. But he lives knowing that next time, if there is a next time, I won't be merciful. And this is merciful? Blood and terror and trauma? Compared to what my father would have done? Yes. Compared to what the man he stole from expected me to do? Absolutely. His expression was hard, unyielding. This is the line I walk, Nomi, between the violence my family expects and the legitimacy I'm trying to build. And sometimes the line runs right through human bodies. I felt sick. Not because I didn't understand the logic, but because I did. Because in his world, with his responsibilities, this probably was the most merciful option available. Because compromise between different forms of terrible was still terrible. I need air. I turned toward the penthouse exit. I need to not be here for this. Alessandro will take you wherever you want to go. I want to go alone. That's not safe. Not at 2 a.m. Not when people know you're connected to me. His hand caught my arm, gentle despite the blood still staining his knuckles. Please. Let Alessandro drive you. Let me know you're protected even if you hate me right now. I don't hate you. I'm terrified of becoming complicit in this, of letting love make me okay with things that should never be okay. Then don't be complicit. Draw your line and hold it. Tell me what you can accept and what you can't. But do it while protected, while safe, while giving us a chance to figure out if there's a path forward that doesn't require you to compromise your integrity. I looked down at his hand on my arm, at the blood and the gentleness and the contradiction of a man who could be both brutal and tender, both protector and threat. Take me to Valentina's, I said finally. I need to talk to someone who understands this world and chose to leave it. He released me immediately, called for Alessandro, made sure I had my phone and my jacket and everything I needed before watching me walk away from the violence in his study. In the car, Alessandro was quiet for several blocks before speaking. He's not a monster, Miss Marino. He's just a man trying to hold together an empire built on violence while transitioning it to legitimacy. That transition doesn't happen cleanly. How long have you worked for him? 12 years, since he took over from his father. Alessandro navigated through empty streets with practiced ease. I've seen him make choices that would break most people, seen him carry burdens that would crush anyone with less strength, and I've seen him become more human, more capable of mercy, since you entered his life. The man in his study didn't look very merciful. The man in his study is alive. Under the old rules, he wouldn't be. That's progress, even if it doesn't feel like it. We arrived at Valentina's apartment 15 minutes later. She opened the door in pajamas, took one look at my face, and pulled me inside. What did my brother do? No judgment, just weary recognition. I told her everything. The blood and the pleading and Octavio's cold logic about enforcement and mercy. She listened while making tea, her expression cycling through familiar pain. This is why I left, she said finally, handing me a cup. This exact situation. Loving someone from that world, knowing what they're capable of, trying to reconcile the person you love with the violence they commit, in service of family and power. How did you choose? How did you decide if you could live with it? I couldn't. That's why I'm here with Axel instead of there with them. She settled beside me on the couch. But Nomi, you're not me. You're stronger, more capable of holding boundaries while maintaining connection. And Octavio is trying in ways my father never did. Trying to be better, to transition the family business, to limit damage. Trying isn't the same as succeeding. And how many people get hurt while he's trying? Probably fewer than if he wasn't trying at all. She took my hand. Look, I can't tell you what to do. Only you know how much violence you can witness and still love the person committing it. Only you know if the good he does balances the harm. But I can tell you that leaving won't make the violence stop. It'll just mean you're not there to influence him toward better choices. That's not a reason to stay, hoping to be a good influence. No. The only reason to stay is if you love him enough to accept the entirety of who he is. The gallery patron and the enforcer, the council member and the crime family heir. All of it, contradictions and complications and blood-stained knuckles included. I spent the night on Valentina's couch, staring at the ceiling, trying to reconcile impossible things, trying to find the line between complicity and compassion, between loving someone and enabling them, between maintaining my integrity and accepting his reality. By morning, I'd made a decision, not to leave and not to stay, but something more nuanced, something that required both of us to change. I returned to the penthouse at 8 a.m. Octavio was in the kitchen, looking exhausted, his knuckles wrapped in clean bandages. The study door was closed, and I chose not to ask what had happened after I left. "We need new rules," I said without preamble. "If this is going to work, if I'm going to be with you completely instead of just the sanitized version, we need boundaries." He set down his coffee cup, giving me his full attention. "I'm listening. I don't want details about enforcement. I don't want to know specifics about violence or threats or any of the brutal choices you have to make. But I also don't want you hiding things from me. So there's a middle ground we need to find. Honesty without graphic detail. You want to know what I'm doing without knowing how." "Exactly. I want to trust that you're making the most merciful choices available within an immoral system. But I can't witness the enforcement, can't be present for the violence, can't become numb to things that should horrify me." He nodded slowly. "That's fair. What else?" "I want a voice in the transition, in moving the family business toward legitimacy. You say you're trying, but I want to be part of that effort. Want to help build alternative revenue streams, help phase out the violent operations, help create something you can be proud of publicly. You want to reform organized crime through legitimate business strategy. I want to be your partner in building something better, not just decoration for the parts that are already acceptable." I moved closer, took his bandaged hands in mine. "You told me you saw me as a partner. Prove it. Let me help instead of just tolerating the ugly parts from a distance." His expression shifted, vulnerability replacing the exhausted control. "You're not leaving. I'm choosing to stay, but on these terms, with these boundaries, with your agreement that we're building toward something that doesn't require blood on your hands. That transition will take years, maybe longer, and there will be setbacks, times when violence is the only option I have. I know, but as long as you're genuinely trying, as long as I can see progress, I can live with imperfect forward motion." I squeezed his hands gently. "I just can't live with stagnation disguised as inevitability." He pulled me close, his arms secure around me, his face buried in my hair. "You're asking me to believe we can change decades of family business because you want me to be better. I'm asking you to believe you're capable of being the man you pretend to be in public. The council member who fights for legitimate business and community investment. The gallery patron who supports art. The partner who respects my boundaries while honoring his responsibilities. What if I can't be all those things? Then, we figure out which version you can sustain and whether I can love that version." I pulled back to look at him. "But I think you can. I think you've been trying to be all those things since we started this. You just need someone who believes you can succeed instead of expecting you to fail." We spent the rest of that morning talking through specifics, what he would tell me and what he'd keep private, how I could contribute to legitimate business development, which family operations were negotiable and which were untouchable for now. Creating a roadmap toward the future we both wanted but had seemed impossible before. It wasn't perfect. Nothing about our situation could be perfect. But it was honest and collaborative, and built on mutual respect, instead of him protecting me from reality, or me demanding he become someone fundamentally different. Over the following months, I became involved in the Conti family business in ways I never anticipated. Consulting on property development, helping design community investment programs, working with Octavio's team to phase out illegal operations and replace them with legitimate revenue streams. It was slow, frustrating work, but it was progress. Measurable, tangible progress that let me sleep at night knowing I was part of building something better instead of just tolerating something terrible. And through it all, Octavio kept his promise. He didn't hide what he was doing, but he spared me the graphic details. He consulted me on major decisions without forcing me to witness their execution. He let me maintain my integrity while respecting his obligations. We fought about it sometimes. About the pace of change, about specific decisions, about the gap between ideal and possible. But we fought as partners, not as enforcer and decoration. As equals trying to build something unprecedented in both our worlds. By late spring, a year and a half after that first midnight kiss on a frozen rooftop, we'd created something that felt sustainable. Not perfect, never perfect, but real and honest, and built on mutual choice instead of convenient timing. I thought we'd finally found our balance. Thought the worst challenges were behind us. I had no idea that my past was about to collide with his present in ways that would test everything we'd built. That old photographs might be destroyed, but old enemies never really disappeared. That choosing to be seen meant accepting that you could never control who was watching or what they'd do with the information. The web had been closing around us for months. We just hadn't felt it tighten yet. The package arrived at the gallery on a Tuesday morning in late May, delivered by courier with no return address. Inside was a tablet, already powered on, displaying a video ready to play. I should have called Octavio immediately. Should have followed protocol and let security handle anything suspicious. But curiosity or stupidity or fate made me press play. Lorenzo's face filled the screen. Not the scared, compliant Lorenzo from his studio 18 months ago, but someone harder, more desperate. Nomi, if you're watching this, I'm already dead or disappeared, which amounts to the same thing in your boyfriend's world. He glanced off camera nervously. I need you to know that giving you those photos, signing those documents, that wasn't the end of it. I had backups, cloud storage your people didn't know about, and I sold access to someone who makes the last blackmailer look like amateur hour. My hands went numb. They're planning something big. Not just releasing photos or destroying Octavio's political career. Something that uses your past to leverage his family connections, force them into a deal that benefits some Eastern European syndicate trying to establish operations in Chicago. He leaned closer to the camera. I'm sorry. I know that doesn't matter. But I am sorry. I thought I was just selling photos for cash. I didn't know I was putting you in this kind of danger. The video cut to black, replaced by a text message. We have everything. Photos, video, details about your relationship timeline. Proof your gallery was funded by organized crime money. You have 48 hours to convince Octavio Conti to agree to our terms, or we release it all. Destroy his career, your reputation, and expose the Conti family's criminal operations to federal investigation. Instructions will follow. I stood frozen in my gallery, the tablet heavy in my hands, the weight of consequences finally crushing down. Everything I'd feared about being with Octavio, about being seen, about my past becoming weaponized, was materializing exactly as my worst nightmares predicted. My phone rang. Octavio, like he always knew when I was spiraling. Don't say anything, I answered. Just come to the gallery, alone if possible, and prepare for everything to get much worse. He arrived 12 minutes later with Alessandro despite my request for solitude, took one look at my face, and pulled me into his office without questions. I handed him the tablet, watched him watch Lorenzo's confession, saw his expression cycle through fury and calculation, and something that looked almost like resignation. How bad is this? I asked when the video ended. Very bad. Eastern European Syndicate is probably the Kozlov organization. They've been trying to establish territory here for 2 years, getting blocked by existing families including mine. He set the tablet down carefully. This is their entry strategy. Force us into partnership by threatening federal investigation that would dismantle generations of infrastructure. So what do? You do nothing. You stay protected while I handle this. We're not having this argument again. I moved to block his exit from the office. I'm not the damsel who needs sheltering while you sacrifice yourself to protect me. That's not who we are anymore. This is different. This isn't enforcement or business strategy. This is existential threat to everything my family has built. And they're using you as the leverage point because they know I'll burn the world to keep you safe. Then let's burn the world together instead of you doing it alone. I caught his hands, the ones that had held me and hurt others and built impossible things. You promised we were partners. You promised I got a voice in major decisions. This qualifies. His jaw tightened, that familiar war between protection and partnership playing across his face. What are you proposing? I'm proposing we call their bluff. Release the information ourselves on our terms before they can weaponize it against us. The idea had been forming since I'd finished Lorenzo's video, desperate and possibly stupid, but it felt right. Control the narrative instead of letting them control it. You want to publicly admit our relationship started as a business arrangement? That your gallery was funded by money connected to organized crime? That photographs exist of you without your consent? He pulled his hands free, started pacing. That destroys everything we've built. Your reputation, my political career, the entire transition strategy for making the family legitimate. Or it removes their leverage entirely, removes the scandal and the secret and the power they have over us. I followed him, forcing him to look at me. We admit the truth, all of it, but we frame it our way. The business arrangement that became real love. The funding that gave an artist opportunity regardless of source. The violation of consent by an ex-boyfriend that we've already addressed legally. Federal investigation will still happen. The photos alone won't trigger it, but admitting organized crime funding will. Then let it happen. You've been transitioning operations anyway, phasing out illegal revenue, building legitimate businesses. Federal investigation might actually accelerate that process. I caught his hands again. And maybe it removes you from having to be the enforcer. Removes the burden of blood on your hands because external pressure forces the change you've been trying to create voluntarily. He stared at me like I'd suggested voluntary crucifixion. You're proposing we destroy everything to save everything. I'm proposing we choose honesty over controlled narrative. Choose being public about our complications instead of hiding them. Choose each other over protecting image. I moved closer. You told me once that I made you want to be the man you pretend to be in public. This is your chance to actually become that man. Not perfectly, not without consequences, but authentically. This will hurt you as much as it hurts me. Probably more. I know. But I'd rather be hurt honestly than protected by lies. I thought about my mother, about disappearing into someone else's control. And I'd rather face consequences as your partner than watch you sacrifice yourself to protect me. That's not love, Octavio. That's possession disguised as care. For a long moment, he just looked at me. Then he pulled out his phone, made a call. Get me Carter Investigations, the forensic accountants we used for the property audit, and find me the best crisis PR firm that handles political scandals. I need them at the penthouse in 2 hours with strategy options for voluntary disclosure of complicated truths. He paused. And call my father. Tell him we need family meeting. Everyone. Tonight. No excuses. He ended the call, turned back to me. If we do this, if we actually release everything ourselves, there's no going back. Federal investigation, media scrutiny, probably the end of my political career, and possibly criminal charges depending on what they find. I know. Your gallery might be seized as proceeds of crime. Your reputation will be questioned. Every relationship you've built in the art world might dissolve when they learn the funding source. I know. And there's a chance, a real chance, that after all this, I end up in prison. That the violence I've committed while transitioning the family business gets exposed and prosecuted. that protecting you costs me my freedom. Then I'll wait for you, visit you, build something legitimate while you're gone, and rebuild together when you're out. I framed his face with my hands. But I won't let you sacrifice yourself in secret. Won't let you make a deal with monsters to protect me. Won't be the excuse you use to compromise everything you've been trying to become. Something broke in his expression, the control cracking to reveal raw emotion underneath. I love you, more than power or legacy or freedom. More than I've ever loved anything. I love you too, which is why we do this together or not at all. He kissed me then, deep and desperate, like he was memorizing the taste in case this was the last time we had before everything exploded. When we broke apart, both breathing hard, his forehead rested against mine. We're really doing this. Voluntary disclosure. Complete honesty. Consequences be damned. We're really doing this. The next 48 hours were chaos. Lawyers and accountants and PR specialists creating strategy for controlled detonation of our lives. Octavio's father furious about exposure, his mother worried about family legacy, Valentina quietly supportive in a way that meant she understood better than anyone. We crafted a statement that admitted everything. The business arrangement origin story, the organized crime funding, Lorenzo's photographs and our response to them, the ongoing federal cooperation Octavio was volunteering for to transition family operations to legitimate business. We released it on a Thursday evening, timed for maximum media coverage, accompanied by documentation of everything we claimed. Bank records and contracts and legal filings that proved we weren't hiding, weren't running, were choosing radical honesty over carefully constructed lies. The response was exactly as terrible as predicted. Octavio's counsel seat was suspended pending investigation. My gallery faced immediate audit and potential seizure. Media coverage was brutal, dissecting every element of our relationship, questioning every decision, treating us like a cautionary tale about corruption and naivety. But beneath the scandal, something unexpected emerged. Support from people who appreciated honesty over spin. Artists who'd struggled with funding sources and understood compromise. Political reformers who saw Octavio's voluntary cooperation as genuine attempt at change rather than performance. The federal investigation took 6 months. 6 months of depositions and audits and anxiety about what they'd find and how they'd prosecute it. 6 months of Octavio dismantling the last illegal operations under government oversight, transitioning everything to legitimate business, or shutting it down entirely. 6 months of me fighting to keep my gallery open, proving through independent audit that my artistic merit existed separately from funding source, building new relationships based on truth instead of sanitized story. We held together through all of it, fighting sometimes about strategy or stress, but fighting as partners, facing consequences as team instead of him protecting me from reality or me demanding he be someone different. In December, almost exactly 2 years after our first New Year's Eve together, the investigation concluded. Octavio was offered a deal: probation, community service, and permanent exit from any leadership role in family business in exchange for testifying about organized crime structures and helping dismantle remaining illegal operations. He took it without hesitation, chose freedom and honesty over power and legacy, chose to become the man he'd always pretended to be, finally and completely. My gallery was cleared after proving independently sustainable revenue and artistic merit. The photographs from Lorenzo were legally sealed after we sued for privacy violation, and somehow, despite everything, we'd survived. We were standing on the same rooftop where it all started. New Year's Eve 2 years later, bundled against the cold champagne in paper cups, watching fireworks explode exactly where I'd sketched them before they happened. Think we'll ever have a normal life? I asked, leaning against his chest. Define normal. His arms came around me, secure and warm. If you mean boring and predictable, absolutely not. If you mean honest and complicated and built on mutual choice, then yes, we already have that. I choose you. Even knowing everything now, Even after all the chaos and danger and federal investigation, I'd still choose you. Good, because I'm about to ask you something that requires you to keep choosing me. He turned me to face him, pulled a small box from his pocket. Know me, Marino. You've seen me at my worst and my best and every contradiction in between. You've faced my world without flinching and changed it through sheer stubborn refusal to let me be less than I could be. You've been my conscience and my partner, and the only person who's ever made me want to be better, more than I want to be powerful. He opened the box, revealing a ring. Simple, elegant, exactly my aesthetic. Will you marry me? Will you keep choosing me, keep challenging me, keep being the voice that reminds me what actually matters? Will you let me spend the rest of my life earning the honor of being chosen by someone extraordinary? I looked at the ring, at the man holding it, at the city spreading below us full of possibility and danger, and the life we'd built through honesty instead of control. Yes. Obviously, yes. You ridiculous man. Of course I'll marry you. He slid the ring onto my finger, kissed me as midnight struck and fireworks erupted, the city celebrating while we promised each other permanence. Happy New Year, Bambina mia. Happy new beginning, Octavio. We married 3 months later on the same rooftop. Small ceremony with close friends and family who'd survived our chaos with us. Valentina and Axel. Alessandro, who'd protected me through everything. A few artists from my gallery, Octavio's father, who'd finally accepted the transition with grudging respect. I wore a simple dress I'd designed with a tattoo artist friend, elegant but unmistakably me. Octavio wore the same shirt from that first night, 4 buttons undone, looking dangerous and devoted in equal measure. When we exchanged vows, we promised honesty over comfort, partnership over possession, choosing each other every day instead of assuming permanence made effort optional. And when we kissed as married partners, surrounded by people who knew our whole complicated story and loved us anyway, I felt completely seen and completely myself. No longer invisible, no longer performing. Just Nomi and Octavio, building something unprecedented from chaos and choice and radical honesty. The gallery thrived under new funding and renewed reputation. Octavio's community service turned into genuine passion for legitimate business development and political reform from outside the system. We fought and loved and built life that honored both independence and connection. 3 years after that first midnight kiss, we welcomed a daughter we named Aurora, teaching her about art and integrity, about choosing difficulty over comfort when the choice mattered, about being seen without being consumed. And on every New Year's Eve, we returned to that rooftop. Champagne in paper cups, city spread below us, remembering the night everything changed. The night I stopped being invisible and he started being honest. The night we chose danger over safety and built something real from the chaos. The night that started with a helicopter and a runaway sister and ended with everything.